And what you can do with this rifle, which you couldn't do with any others, is you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can just keep firing. At close quarters, you want something that's going to absolutely pack a punch. If you're firing this, you want to make sure that you stop them and stop them forever. Well, we are in the county of Volusia in Florida, and this is Volusia Valor Days. It's a special show with World War II armour, and we're in one of the World War II armour half tracks, and I'm clutching the M1 Garand. This was designed by John C. Garand. He was actually Canadian, not American, but for the Springfield company, which is very much American, so it's considered a Canadian-American creation. Designed in the 1920s, comes into as a standard issue rifle of the US Army in 1936, replacing the M1903 Springfield rifle. It starts becoming standard issue in 1936 onwards. But what you do see is you still see people in the Philippines, for example, Battle of Corregidor and Bataan Peninsula, they're still using the Springfields for the most part because they just haven't kind of filtered their way across the seas by the start of the war. But this is the standard issue. And as I say, over kind of 5.5 million of them made. 5,468,772. So quite a lot is the long and short of it. It's unique because this is the first semi-automatic rifle. So basically what you do is you pull this back and you put down a clip of 8 rounds, and then you just keep firing and firing and firing and firing until your clips run out. And then there's a little ping and out comes the clip and off you go again. This is where you get Garand thumb, because you have to shut it again, you have to push this down, and you can see, you can absolutely get your thumb caught in that. Yeah. Once it gets a certain part, once you get past, if you can see that that's going down, then you're kind of fine.
The rounds in.
Yeah. I mean, this is really straightforward, and you know, you put it into your shoulder. It's got a lovely sighting mechanism. It's got this little pin here. It's absolutely tiny, but when you've got it close, you can see really, really clearly. That lines up with the sighting mechanism here. Yeah, it's incredibly good. And what you can do, which you can do with this rifle, which you couldn't do with any others, is you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
yeah,
and you can just keep firing. Whereas every other rifle of the Second World War is bolt action. So the Lee Enfield, short magazine Lee Enfield, you've got to kind of pull it back again, fire, pull it back again, fire. And the great thing about the Lee Enfield is it's got a very short bolt, so you don't have to change your position, which means you can fire kind of 30 rounds a minute. Whereas with the K98, the Mauser breech that the Germans had, the bolt comes back a lot further. But with this, I mean, this is just what's not to like. You never ever find an American soldier who disses the Garand. Yeah. They all just say this was a fantastic rifle, really, really good. It's really good at kind of 400 yards, which is extreme range, of course. Accurate, reliable, and rapid fire. That ability to just go dun 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 is just, you can't put a price on that, really. That is literally a lifesaver. It's rightly reckoned to be the kind of finest rifle of World War II, and you can completely understand why. It's used well beyond Korea and everything, so yeah. Yeah, and then you're getting kind of, you know, into the realms of automatic rifles, and it just sort of sees its time out. Yeah. But this is a game changer when it comes in the Second World War. This is the M3 Submachine Gun, known better as the grease gun. Sort of starts coming into use in the middle of 1944, something like that. So it's pretty predominant by the end of the war.
Why was it called the grease gun?
Well, it's just because it just looks like a grease gun. You know, the kind of the grease guns that you use for your cars and everything. It's got this kind of pointed bit here, and it just looks more like a grease gun than a submachine gun in some ways. So that's why it was christened the grease gun. But as you can see, it's pretty simple. So this is, you just lift this up, put it back down. That's the safety catch. So this is the you pull it back. You put that in, that's not firing. So you have to open that to fire it, and then it clicks back forward again. So just really, really simple, really straightforward. You've got this as well, which pulls this back like that. So you've got the stock, you can put it back. So a bit like the MP40, but just much cheaper and easier to do. And you can see all the metal here. This is stamped metal rather than kind of ground metal. These were just issued to kind of literally anyone. Submachine guns, you know, they're for close quarter stuff, so they're issued to tank crews, they're issued to infantry, to literally everybody. Yeah, so this is a .45, and it's quite a big slug. You know, the Garand, for example, is .30, and you can see it's got this kind of pretty long magazine, but obviously a .45 slug is bigger than a .30 caliber slug. But at close quarters, that's what you want. You want something that's going to absolutely pack a punch. You don't want a kind of small, neat hole that's going to go straight through someone out the other side and they'll be okay. If you're firing this, you want to make sure that you stop them and stop them forever. It was inspired by the Sten gun. I mean, what the US Army does is in 1941 they start looking at the kind of patterns of conflict, how it's been playing out in 1940-41 during the kind of German Blitzkrieg years. And they're looking at some of the weapons that are being used. They're looking at the weapons that are being developed, whether it be the MP40 or whether it be the Sten gun that the British have. And they think, you know, Tommy gun's great and everything. It's really, really good, but that costs $85 in 1942. We need something much cheaper, and so they produce this. And the whole point about it is that it's cheap. It's chips. It's stamped metal. You know, this costs $15 rather than 85. So obviously, you get a lot more bang for your buck. Sorry about the pun. It's actually it's designed by George Hyde, who is part of the General Motors Inland Division. And that also tells you quite a lot about the United States in the early 1940s, because the biggest area of industry in the US really is the automobile industry. And they harness this for war production, for military uses. So General Motors is going from civilian trucks to military trucks like this one that I'm sat in now, but is also producing incredible weapons such as the M3, and they later produced the M3A1 and various other models which have different kind of features on it. So you don't have this on the A1. But basically it's the same, and you can see how roughly these two halves of this are put together. I mean, just look at the welding down this. This is really reminiscent of the Sten gun, and the kind of thing you absolutely don't see on a Tommy gun or indeed an MP40, the German submachine gun. At no point would you see this kind of rough welding. The Germans would just be appalled. But actually this is about numbers, and it's about mass producing as many of these as possible. One of the requirements when it was first commissioned was that 90% of its bullets could hit a 6 foot by 6 foot target of 50 yards. You're very rarely going to be using it at that distances. But what it does show is that it might be rough and ready, but it's also pretty accurate as well. And this is kind of similar weight to the MP40, so it's about, you know, just under 8 pounds. So what's that, about, you know, about 4 kilograms, just under 4 kilograms, something like that, 3.7, 3.8 kilograms. So it's a little bit lighter. You know, the fact that you can pull the kind of the stock in and out means that, you know, it's sort of easier to store. You can put it very easily inside the inside of a tank where you haven't got much space, or wherever. So yeah, I think it's pretty popular. It's an amazing piece of kit. You know, it's this principle of taking weapons which are quite complicated when they're being developed in the 1920s and 1930s, but in the confines and constraints of the Second World War, where numbers count for everything, this is a development of an earlier concept into something which is altogether much, much, much more simple, but which is still delivering everything it needs to and more, because it's got a 45mm slug. That heavier slug really, really counts. It means that it's much more lethal than the smaller caliber weapons.